Welcome to this series of instructional videos using Hydrocryl Artists paint products. Hydrocryl is an Australian manufacturer of colour and mediums with over 30 years experience in the marketplace. My name is Richardson-Hyde and I've been testing, mixing and using the Hydrocryl range of paints and mediums in my own art practice. I have a background teaching colour theory and mixing at tertiary level in Australia for over 28 years. The most effective way to understand color mixing and application is by testing and observing and recording results. With each workshop, you may download exercises which accompany the video. Simply go to the links to download the exercise sheets and begin to explore the fascinating world of color mixing and application. This workshop is about tinting, toning, and shading a color by adding black, white, and gray. We may vary the darkness, the lightness, and the intensity or saturation of one single color, which is known as a pure hue as it appears on the color wheel, by adding either white, black, or gray to the color in increments. I'll demonstrate how to take a single color, and in this case it'll be Hydrocryl Phthalo Blue, which is here, and to create a range of tints, tones, and shades of that color. This is a basic method of altering a single color. Each of the Hydrocryl acrylic paint colors may be altered in this way. So you may tint them by adding white to make the color lighter. An example of this actually is if you add white to red, you get a range of pinks. You may tone the color by adding gray, which is a mixture of black and white, and that makes the color appear duller or less intense, less saturated. And you may shade a color by adding black to make the color appear darker. For example, if you add black to red, you'll get maroon colors. So let's begin mixing. For our first demo, we're going to learn how to tint a color by adding white. I begin by preparing watercolor strips of about 5 centimeters wide by 20 to 25 centimeters long. My first color, Phthalo Blue, is put in the palette, and on the other side, the other end of the palette, I put white. So I'm using the Hydrocryl Phthalo Blue and the Hydrocryl Titanium White. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to paint a layer of pure Phthalo Blue. Just need a little bit of water in that, it's a bit thick. So pure Phthalo Blue into the mix. Here. And I'm going to put a strip of it on the watercolor paper. Just one single strip. Like that. Then I'll just put that there. Then I'm going to incrementally add white. You can either use a syringe to do this, or you can just use a small amount on your brush. And as long as it's consistent, you should get an even gradation from the pure color back through to white. So let's start by putting a little bit of the blue in the center here. And you'll need quite a lot of white over the course of adding, because white is quite, doesn't make a lot of difference as you first start, but the more you add it, the lighter it becomes. And again, depending on how much you add in increments, will give you the whole range. So the second one is quite a bit lighter than the first, like so. And of course, each time I add white, I'll have to remix. So I'm going to add another little bit and mix and paint it on. I go from side to side and I leave a little bit of white paper in between. You can make them larger as well if you wish. And I add a bit more. And this is the way of incrementally tinting a color back almost to a very pale blue. When you're using white with a strong color, you find that it takes a long time to get back to the natural color. So I'll add a few more, like so, and then I'm going to show you one that I prepared earlier to give you an idea of how far back you can go. It's quite a simple technique, and it gives you a whole range of monochromatic color harmonies. Mono meaning one and chroma meaning color. Some of my students get quite a large number of increments. They add very small amounts and get a huge number of increments of the tint. You don't have to go to those lengths, but as long as there's a good discernible difference between each addition of white, then you get an idea of the effect that it has. I'll do one more just to give you an idea of what it is. Try to step them down though, so that they seem to flow smoothly from one addition of white to the next. So you see it's starting to get a lot lighter now. Now I'm going to stop this and I'll just show you that. So we made a good start. And this is an example of phthalo blue, the pure phthalo blue, and adding increments, and it goes around this way till we get almost to white. It's a useful technique for harmonizing color, and we're going to go on and we're going to add gray to a color next to tone it. In this demo, we're going to be learning how to create a tonal range of a single color. So we're using the phthalo blue again, and we're going to mix a mid-gray by mixing titanium white from Hydrocryl and the Hydrocryl carbon black together, and we're going to place it in a palette here. Now, when I mix black and white to get a mid-gray, I have a whole range of grays here, and I find I use this as a guide to really get to the mid-gray, which is probably about here in the scale. So that gives me an indication of what I will need to mix in my palette for a mid-gray. If you go darker or lighter in your gray before you start toning your color, you actually change the whole scale of the color that you achieve. So we're going to start first by mixing black and white. I'll put a little bit of black in the middle palette. Of course, black is a much stronger colorant than the white, so you have to be careful that you don't get it too dark. You usually need a bit more white than you do black to mix that mid-gray. And we'll start stirring it now and see what we can achieve. And you need quite a bit if you're going to mix the color in. So we're not quite there. If I'm looking at my chart here, I need to get to that, so I need a little bit more white. So this is the first step in this process of gaining a tonal range for your color, and we're almost there now. I think that's looking pretty good. You want to mix enough color, just do a bit more. I want to mix enough color so that you can achieve a full range of the toned color. The beauty about toning or graying down a color is it reduces its saturation or its intensity, so it makes the color appear quieter or duller. And tone colors are really useful in compositions because they create restful areas and cause the brighter colors or the pure hue to appear stronger and brighter. Okay, I've mixed a good mid-gray now. I'll get rid of that brush. And in this palette, I've got the phthalo blue. So I'm going to start by painting that phthalo blue, one layer of the phthalo blue down first on my little watercolor strip. And then I'm going to incrementally add, paint that here. That's the pure color from the, direct from the jar. And then I can start adding bits of gray to it to dull it down or reduce its intensity. So let's keep our additions of gray the same. We'll start with a small amount there. And I'll mix it. So already you'll see a change to the color the minute I add the black and white mixture. Does change it quite a bit. And we're going to add some more gray. It's best to mix the gray up first and not rely on a bit of black, a bit of white added directly to the color. You really need to have that gray mixed first so it's consistent in its grayness, if you like. And as you can see, the color is changing quite a bit now with the gray. And of course, the more increments of gray you continue to add, the more the color will alter. And it doesn't so much get lighter as, although it does lighten a bit, it gets duller. That's the difference. Now the last one, I'm just going to, if you don't do it in order, then it won't step down evenly. But I am going to just quickly cheat. I'm going to just add a bit of the color to the gray I've mixed and put it down here to see. That's about a mid, equal of the mid gray there. This shows you the pure color and then the additions of gray going right through till there's almost no color at all in the gray. So it's achromatic, totally achromatic, meaning it has no color in it. That's how we tone a color down, and it's a simple matter, a little bit of patience and incrementally adding gray to the color to tone it down. The final demonstration in this series on adding tints, tones, and shades is to add black to a color to make it into shades of a color. Now the color that we're starting with again is the phthalo blue, which is already quite a dark color on its own. And you will notice if you look at this chart that I made ahead of time, it doesn't take very many increments of black added to the color for it to go pure black. And that's because black is one of the strongest colorants. So when added to the color, unlike white or even gray, where it took quite a long time to get from the color to white or the color to gray, with black it's almost immediate. So what that means is that you add very small increments to change the color. So we're going to start by just painting the color on again as the first stage in changing our color. So the phthalo blue painted on. Then I'm going to add a very small increment of black. Hardly any at all, hardly noticeable. And you'll see that it's darkened it a tiny bit, but not too much. trick is to get it so that it changes. You can see that it has changed it a little bit. And we're going to add a bit more. Past experience has taught me to be very careful about adding too much black at once, because the color will just turn black. When you do this with white, you get, with red, you get a whole shade, a series of shades of maroon, which is quite beautiful. Once again, the shades become a color harmony in themselves. So when you mix tints, tones, and shades together, you get beautiful monochrome harmonies, which are quite subtle. And so with one color, black and white, you can achieve a lot of different effects. And you get a very, it's in tonal painting, it's ideal. And you got to get a lot of ranges from light to dark. And you see the color is reasonably slowly changing to black. Well, we'll probably be able to get another couple of increments in before it goes completely black. So we're almost there. And one last one, and I think that'll be as much as we can get out of this. Different colors darken more quickly. So for instance, yellow darkens to a greeny color when you add black. Black's quite a harsh way of altering a color to make shades. There are other things you can do with other darker colors rather than black, which will make the color incrementally darken. But I wanted to show you black because it's part of the monochrome color harmony that we use. Okay, we're almost there. I'd say we were going to be black next. Pretty much. There we go. So you can see how quickly this moved from pure color out of the jar right through the range to almost black, and there it is, ready made up for you. I've used titanium white, carbon black, phthalo blue from Hydrocryl to do this. I hope you'll look for us with the next range of workshops. The next one coming up is on how you prepare different substrates or surfaces for painting.